What is going on out there, lacrosse fans and sports bettors alike? You thought you got rid of us, and no, we're back. There were bye weeks to be had for us as well as you, the players, everybody, but it's another edition of Bet On Lacrosse, and boy, oh boy, are we pumped up. This is playoff edition numero dos, as we had quarterfinal weekend. Some fun on the episode then. Great weekend if you're an underdog fan. And we'll get into a little bit of what happened. You know, now that we're 2 weeks removed from it, what ended up happening. We're going to preview each and every game on the board. Real nice and easy since there's 2 games on the board. What we're also going to get into, huge shout out to a new worker for us with our team that we have, our writing team, Parker Blake, coming on and doing some serious number crunching. We're going to be unveiling a new segment today called BOL Trends. I think I got some stuff. I didn't even share it with Hutton or the co-host with the co-host, Doug Greenberg, quite yet, because it's that mind-blowing. We'll do our ATS rankings. We're going to get into the fact that Doug and I have completely converted Hutton into full degenerate status. We have some thoughts on playing futures this late in the season. And, of course, we're going to give you our best bets, our EMOs. So that is what is coming up on the semifinal edition of Bet On Lacrosse. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and with me, as alluded to, the co-host with that co-most, Dougie Fresh. Dougie Greenberg, fresh off of the best hangover or worst hangover he's ever had in his life. Dougie, how are you doing other than nauseous?
It was definitive. We're going to go with worse, not best,
okay,
for damn sure. So we're off to a real hot start. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good, all things considered. I didn't even mention that the AC is also broken in my house. So Jesus. I'm also I'm sweating in this room right now, but it's good. I'm sweating out all the alcohol until, we all meet up next weekend and probably consume a little more as well, which, I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person, actually, for the first time. The thought of any type of alcohol entering my body is giving me chills. So not in a good way, not good chills.
So it's only natural for me to also welcome back into the show with us for the recording. It's been a while, and we're happy that he's back doing the Miss America wave. Hutton Jackson back in the saddle, and he's not afraid of beer. In fact, he's enjoying a cold snack. His new favorite beverage. Hutton, great to see you, man. How have you been, brother? Nice to have you back on.
I'm good. I found a new beer. It's essentially Miller Lite with a cooler name, Montucky Cold Snacks. And if they would like to sponsor the podcast, they are more than welcome to.
The first one's always free.
You just gave them the ad for free. But
the first one's always free.
Yeah, first one's free.
Make a good
next
product.
One's going to cost them. Next one's going to cost them. But I'm happy to be back. This is a rare week where I'm actually working days and not nights. So I'm able to join you guys and happy to be back.
No, great to have you back, man, and excited for this week's episode. Of course, talking semifinals. If you missed the episode from 2 weeks ago, we'll let you know. Doug and I both big fat losers on our best bet. Moving the best bet. Whenever it is a double best bet for Doug and I, we are a resounding 0-2 on our best bets. We had the Cannons plus 1.5. They were unblemished as an underdog. They were perfect against the spread as an underdog. All the numbers said it. But unfortunately, Doug, I think we said it on the first episode of the podcast, even your favorite bet, even your favorite rock solid play is still going to lose just about half the time. That's just the peaks, the valleys. You know this well from your daily column that you write, the rundown. Even when all the numbers agree with you, the handicap agrees with you, the momentum behind the Cannons agreed with us, still doesn't matter. We don't get to the counter with the ticket. And that's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. And I guess looking back on it in hindsight, and you know what, this is one of those things in betting. Here's another betting axiom, right? Sometimes you just fall so in love with a bet. And like you were saying, like half the time it actually will pan out. One thing I did on the rundown this week was first college football games of the year, week 0. I saw Illinois or Nebraska giving points on the road. And I was like, madness. absolute madness. Like you cannot possibly, like no way, like there's no chance. And I knew it in my heart of hearts. I was like, this is the bet. I know it. So I took Illinois +7 and it worked out, right? Illinois won the game straight up. So that's a situation where I was like, I knew it in my heart of hearts. And when you get that one right, you're like, hell yeah, like my feelings, they're so good. And like my urges are perfect. And like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like a god at this thing. And it was the same way that I felt about cannons.
That's so
like,
true. I loved it. I loved it.
I loved it. In my heart of hearts, I was like, cannons have to cover this game. They might win this game. I know that they are going to do it. In my heart, I know what's going to happen. And then, of course, it didn't.
Your heart's a damn liar. Your heart's a liar sometimes. Your heart is a liar sometimes. 60% of the time, it works all the time is really what you need to remember from that. And Doug loved the Cannons so much. His EMO was also the Cannons, a plus money play on the money line. Maybe next year. I actually did cash in on my EMO, bringing me to 5-3 on the year. The chaos against the Archers just ran it back. I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It was my EMO the week before, so I just rolled with it. And it was my EMO the week after. I didn't forget. I know I still owe you guys a Stone Cold beer smash. So that will be happening. The video will be shared on our Twitter page. All of us are getting together this weekend for a little powwow in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. How apropos that that's when we'll all be coming together. But I will have Doug tossing me the beers if he has recovered from the hangover from hell. He will toss me the beers. The smash will happen. The content will be there. No worries, folks. No worries. Yeah. Indeed. So that's what happened last week. Again, great week if you love underdogs. We'll run down the ATS rankings in a little bit here, but before that, I just wanted to say again, folks, if you have player props available, you need to peruse those. You need to look through those because credit to the odds makers, they have gotten so much better at the spreads, at the totals, at the money lines. As this season has gone on, they have learned, just as we have as bettors. The lines are getting sharper, but these books, they don't have enough hours in the day to be paying attention to baseball props and lacrosse props. And even you can find football or you can find value in football props as well. With how many games there are and so many more money and moves to follow, player props are going to be your best bet. And if we had them by the time we recorded our shows, they would probably be our best bets, our EMOs, because on the season, since they've been offered in Pennsylvania, I've been 7-1 on player props, had another 3-0 last weekend for Wager Talk with Gutterding over a half goal. Like a half goal. Like you saw that line and I was like, I don't care. I'm playing this. I'm playing it and it's going to be a max play for me. Teat, I took him over too. He had kind of rolled a more facilitator role. I said, as they move back into the playoffs, he's going to be a guy they need to rely on a little bit more. The over 2 ends up cashing. And then a really sneaky value play on a player in Brad Smith, who has scored in all but 2 of the Whip Snakes games. His was an over-under of 1. So I was figuring the worst that I could do is push on that. And then what does he do? He goes out, he scores 2 goals. So player props, folks, I absolutely love them. If you can find them, bet them. And hopefully you've been having the same success that I've been able to have on some of these player props. And before we move on to some other stuff too, I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on player props and playing those props, but if you do, you can answer with that first. But I just wanted to pick your brain on something, Doug, as far as taking news as a sports bettor and trying to extrapolate that into how you're going to be betting a game. Because when we recorded our show, you and I were saying in the Whip Snakes Redwoods game, the only way that you can look on the spread is Redwoods getting the 1.5 points. It wasn't an official bet for either of us, but we said, if you're going to bet this game, this is the way that you should play it, is taking the Redwoods. And that was even when we knew about the Erlin injury. Then the Perkovich news comes out and I completely do a 180 and I end up losing on a pick that I had rock solid handicapped weeks before or days before. And then because of some news that came out, like, how do you, in the daily column that you write, the rundown for Front Office Sports, like, how do you take news and react to it, but not overreact? Because I think what I did was the perfect example of overreacting to news. Okay, does Perkovic hurt the Redwoods? Sure, not having him in there did, but it shouldn't have been enough to take me off of all the other things that I loved about Redwoods, and it did. How do you fight through that as a bettor?
It really depends on situation to situation. You got to think about, I think the best way to think about it is to try and quantify, and I'm not a math guy by any means, but try to quantify essentially, what kind of value like any given player has to a team. And you really got to think about how much value and try to assign like almost a number to that, right? And one of the things that Red Wings got a lot better at this year was at the face-off stripe. Obviously, have a potentially generational face-off guy in TD Erlin, and just look what happened to them in this game. In this game against Whipsnakes, they got dominated at the stripe. They ended up losing 37%, or they ended up only winning 37% of the face-offs. Whips won 63% of them. And it just goes to show you like how much value a guy like Erlin has to a team like that. And, Perkovic too, like he also has his own little kind of like niche scoring that he does. And, like Redwoods almost got away with it, but it's tough to evaluate it. And I think honestly that game might say a little bit more even about Whipsnakes than it dealt about Redwoods. But yeah, I mean, the ultimate takeaway is it really kind of depends. I mean, look what happened with Whipsnakes throughout the season without Matt Rambo. Mm-hmm. They really, really struggled. He is such a focal point of that offense. I'd say in lacrosse, we're still learning how I think that's part of it too, is like, we're still learning like how crucial each player is. And I think in a sport like lacrosse, it probably matters than say in like football, right? Like if your quarterback's injured in football, that's a humongous difference. If you're the Chiefs and you go from Patrick Mahomes to, I don't even know who their backup quarterback is. But if you go from Mahomes to there, like that's a humongous, like, and the bookmakers will absolutely put that into effect. I wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes is worth like, 3-4 points at minimum. Because because football is just like that. You need to have, it is Chad Henne. Thank you, Hutton. But oh yeah, Chad Henne. I forgot he existed. Anyhow,
I was going to say Chad Henne. I didn't want to jump in and step on you, Pete. The only reason that I know is because Chad Henne, much like Ryan Terefenko, is the pride of Wilson High School. He went to Wilson High School right down the road from me where I was, tooting Ryan Terefenko's horn. That's where he ended up going. That's also where Kerry Collins went. So, just 5 minutes from my house is a hotbed of talent. So that's the only reason that I knew Chad Henne too. So don't feel bad.
Little humble brag.
Yeah, a little humble brag. Not so humble brag. Yeah.
I was gonna say I thought it might be Chase Daniel. I know he played for them at some point, and right. I did see a tweet the other day that was like, Chase Daniel has the best NFL career ever, and you cannot convince me otherwise because he's made so much money for so little playing time.
Bradford, I would argue. Sam Bradford had a pretty damn good career too, and
Matt Flynn also.
Ooh,
but
nice.
anyhow, I digress. But obviously in the NFL, one player can make like an absolutely multiple points worth of difference. In lacrosse, it might be more akin to something like hockey, right? Like if you're missing, a star player in hockey, it's bad, but it's not, it's not like there's a bunch of other guys on the team. There's whatever, like 20 something other players on the team. Like the work all gets spread around, and it's the same thing in lacrosse. It's the same thing in like baseball. But clearly it makes some difference, right? And, like I said, we saw it with Rambo and the Whipsnakes this year. We saw it with Redwoods to some extent last week. And, it's a roundabout way of me giving a bad answer and being like, I'm not 100% sure, but we're figuring it out.
That's how it goes, though. It's hard. And that's why I wanted to ask you, is because there is no real right answer. You know what I mean? You need to find out what works for you. And again, even if it works for you, doesn't mean it's going to work for you all the time. So no, I'm right there with you, man. And we do have our ATS rankings coming up. And before that, I wanted to get into the fact that Hutton has been fully converted. If you go back and listen to the first episode when we were like picking all the games against the spread, Hutton, he kept being like kind of like sheepish. He was like, well, I'm not really going to bet real money on any of this stuff until I learn a little bit more. And now we come to semifinal weekend, and tell the folks, Hutton, about the semifinal bet that you have worked up, because you have learned so much. And I'm like a proud degenerate father when you shared this this photo of the bet that you have worked up for this weekend. So tell the people about your semifinal hopes in one of the games.
Yeah, I've become full degenerate now, thanks to you guys. And I went from one sportsbook app on my phone. Now I have 7 on there. And I went and I checked and I saw DraftKings were giving the Water Dogs plus 1.5. And I was like, wow, that kind of surprised me a little bit. I mean, I get the Whips are good in the playoffs, but the Water Dogs are the top seed. I guess Rambo's going back to Philly, but it surprised me a little bit. So I'm like, I wonder if that's the line everywhere else. And sure enough, Caesars has the Whip Snakes at plus 1.5. So like any good degenerate does, even at minus 145, I placed 5 units on each of them with the hope that it will be a 1-goal game and I'd get a massive payout. Now, if I lose a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not as bad as if I was, placing one-on-one thing. And my thought process is Whip Snakes have played in 5 1-goal games this year. That's half of their games. So I'm feeling pretty good about a 1-goal game, and if I lose this, it's, a little bit of chump change that I lose, but at the end of the day, it's not as bad as if I was only betting on one and, sweating it out. But that's where I'm at.
The crowd loves it. Like the Bet On Lacrosse crowd loves the thought behind it. And he's not only just throwing it up there, he has some reasoning behind it as well. Now, Doug, I'll throw it your way to kind of explain, because sure, basically what he kind of did, you said it before the show, is he made his own prop essentially by betting this, correct?
Yeah, he made a prop for a 1-goal game essentially, and also did what we sometimes call, most of the time you get it in football betting is what you call middling. And middling, the reason why the crowd's cheering is because it's a daredevil act. You got to be pretty sure exactly how this game is going to go. Now in lacrosse, it's a little bit different because, in football, they're middling like, Jets plus 7 with Jets plus 6 or Jets plus 3 or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Which means they're like, okay, well, it's going to be somewhere between a 3 and a 7-point game, or the Jets are going to lose by exactly 3 or 7 points, which is like insane that you feel confident enough to try and do that. Whereas this one is betting on it essentially becoming a 1-goal game and being like, I feel very confident. And what's really nice about it is that you actually have effectively 1 point on each side to work with. And so I think that is a little safer in my mind than what you would be normally middling. But, you said it yourself, like half of Whip Snake's games so far have been 1-goal games. So it's effectively a coin toss that it will be again. And this is a really, really good matchup for them with Water Dogs, a team that has beaten them pretty handily before, but that was without Matt Rambo. And, I see this being a really, really good game. And it wouldn't be surprising if it ends up being a 1-score game, and especially because Whip Snakes have a flair for the dramatic in a lot of their playoff games. So yeah, it is a very proud moment for me and Dan. I know that. So we love it.
It's a beautiful thing. And, basically Hutton has guaranteed he's at least going 1 and something. One of those bets is going to win because of that half-point hook. So if he's also betting some other things on the board, maybe there's an under that he likes a little bit later in some of these games that he's talking about. Maybe there's a money line play that he likes. Maybe there's a future play that he likes. So he's already guaranteed that one of the bets he's going to be winning. He wins both of those. It's a very nice payout. And versus that risk reward, when you're doing sports betting long-term to make money, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Is that a plus EV play maybe in the long run? You could maybe debate that here and there, but what he's essentially done is guaranteed at least one of these plays is going to be winning. He's going to be getting a take back. And if he has 3 plays and 2 of them, both of them hit there, and then his other one hits, he's going to be buying all our food in Philadelphia. So, that's really what it comes down to, is it's the difference between eating ramen for dinner or steak for dinner. And he's at least guaranteed he's having ramen, which is not the worst thing at the end of the day. You can dress it up and put some chives in there. Exactly. Yeah. So I love it. I think it's a fun play. I think it's a decent play. I think there's reasoning behind the play. So proud moment for sure. And hoping that it's a 1-goal game for you. Absolutely. So we'll run down our ATS rankings. We'll get into the games real quick. We'll start with Atlas, who is 7-3 overall. They're 7-3 against the number, covered for the first time in 3 games last week as 1.5-point favorites. They're one of the few teams that as favorites have covered with regularity. We'll get into that a little bit later. The Water Dogs got to rest the week, so they stay in our ATS rankings at 6-3 overall against the number. They're also 6-3. The Chaos, who started off really tough, 0-3 out of the gate, have stormed back. They have covered in 4 straight games and in 6 of their last 7 games. So they are now 6-4 against the spread. They're 5-5 overall. You have the Whip Snakes at 6-4 straight up, and they're only 4-6 against the number, something that I plan on getting into a little bit later as well, which then brings us to the best of the rest. And these are the teams who are no longer playing. This is the in memoriam segment of the show.
Dearly departed.
Yes. We pray for the dearly departed as Cannons 3-7, but better than some of the teams that are left. They are 6-4 against the number. They finally failed to cover and make Doug and I cry last week. The Woods, just about as average as you can get. 5-5 against the number, 5-5 straight up. Rest in peace. Redwoods plus 450 ticket for this guy right here. Archers, the team who was everybody anointing them as the champion. They were 3-0 to start the year, 3-0 against the spread. They kind of stumble to the finish, at least looking against the number. They finished with a below 500, 4-6 ATS record. They're 5-5 straight up. And I'm gonna spare the Chrome. I won't even share theirs. It was bad, folks. You can look that up on your own. 2-7 ATS. So better things will come for Chrome back. Don't worry. At least we made money betting against them on the spread. And when they were 2.5-point underdogs, they were major money makers for us, folks. Both of their wins straight up and against the spread came 2.5. The best days are definitely to come for the Chrome. They have plenty of talent. They'll be back, folks. Do not worry about that. Which also brings us to our Bet on Lacrosse trend segment. Huge thanks to Parker Blake, one of the new contributors for our squad. He did some number crunching, had a whole entire color-coded Excel spreadsheet. Huge thanks to him. If you think underdogs against the spread have been profitable this season, well, you're right. Get this, guys. Blindly playing underdogs in the PLL, 69%. Nice. I know. That's why I rounded up. It was actually like 68.7, something like that. Rounded up just for the content alone. 69%, 27-12 underdogs against the spread this year. When I read that, like, it kind of backed up what I thought was that underdogs have just been an insanely profitable endeavor. 69%, Doug. I mean, that's like a dream season. If you just blindly walked into the PLL and bet underdogs every week against the spread, you were cashing tickets at a damn near 70% clip. Like, that's a dream season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and when the number, and the thing is, the one thing to keep in mind though is, if you're betting underdogs against the spread, a lot of the time that's
you're paying more juice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's going to be more juice on that. You're going to be paying a lot of minus money, but at 69%, it doesn't matter. Exactly. Like that number right there is going to make it easily worth it. Like, even if you're paying, I mean, I'm not even going to try to do the math, but all I know is that 69% is nice enough that you will always be profiting at that, even in these scenarios where you're laying juice, where you have to lay a lot more money. So
no, and here's the other one too. The number is not as stark, as shocking, but unders. You and I have talked about, where's the value on the total being a super fun bet this year. Get this, unders have cashed at a 59% clip. Unders in the PLL this season went 23-16, and that was even after we saw some of these totals get adjusted, and really the standard line that it comes out is either 23.5, 24.5. Unders still cashing 23-16 to the under. That one was a little bit surprising to me, just because lacrosse, I feel like, is when you just ask people about it, it's a high scoring, it's a quick game. There's a lot of scoring, it's back and forth, which I think maybe the under indicates that the games are rather close. But I was surprised to see, a near 60% clip that unders were hitting with that regularity. Something that, we kind of noticed, but until you see that number in front of you, you don't realize how real that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the thing about that too, is that the books are psyched about that. Like the books are psyched about the under.
Nobody wants to bet an under.
Exactly. And so, I wouldn't be surprised, to find out that the public handle was I don't know, 60, 70 something % on the overs. And so the books are probably, rolling in dough because of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lot of situations where they actually bumped a total up, maybe a point higher than they would have, because they were if they were kind of between two numbers, they were probably let's bump it up, because in a lot of situations, they know that the public wants to bet overs. The public does not want to bet unders.
No.
And books know this. So we might have something on this a little later for one of the bets. But as a whole, you got to know the books are pretty psyched. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this was by design.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. So interesting stuff. Huge thanks again to our boy Parker.
Genius.
It was color-coded and everything. Even an idiot like me could read it. It was beautiful. All right, meat and potatoes time, folks. Semifinals in one of my favorite cities, Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. The crew's all going to be there. It's going to be a great time. Cannot wait for these games. But you want to know, what the heck are we betting on? It all starts 11 a.m. this coming Sunday. It's Atlas taking on Chaos. Atlas are 1.5 point favorites. The over-under, the total is 23.5. As a matter of fact, both of our best bets come from this game, but I'll throw out some thoughts. We'll throw it to Doug. We'll get some of Hutton's thoughts on this game as well. This was a game that happened earlier in the season. This matchup only one time. It was a 16-10 win for Atlas in the lone meeting of these two clubs this season. For what it's worth, Atlas is the best team in the league against the spread. We gave you the rankings there, 7-3 against the number. However, even more impressively, they have been the one team to cover as a favorite with regularity. We've been talking about how much it's cashing on the underdogs. They're 4-2 as 1.5 point favorites. That's the best number as a favorite in the league. 4 straight 1.5 point covers. However, as an underdog for Chaos, 3 of those were outright wins. So, there's some conflicting stats here, and it really is going to come down to which team is hotter. Again, that total, kind of a low one at 23.5. We'll maybe have some thoughts on that. But the main thing that stands out to me, guys, as far as this game goes, is that Chaos it seems like it's their MO to sneak into the tournament, just find a way to get in, and then just go Canadian all over everyone's asses. They truly, I don't know if you guys watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's apropos because they're going to Philadelphia this week. So the thing is there's an episode that Charlie, he's all America'd up, and he's like, I'm going to go all America over everybody's asses with his crazy voice that no one but Charlie Day can really do.
Drive out of my face, okay? Before I go America, all over your ass!
That was the only picture I had in my head, was Towers with a Canadian bandana on, just we're going to go Canadian all over everybody's asses. Cause that's what happens. It's what happened last year. They ended up making it to the championship game after struggling through the group play in the championship series. They struggle through the regular season and they get hot at the right time. Do you think there's reasoning behind that? Is it the box meets field style that they play? It takes a little bit to get some of that rhythm. I'll start with you, Doug, but Hutton's been covering this league and professional lacrosse a little bit longer than us. So I'd love to get his take on the box adapted to the field. But, is there anything to sneaking in and going Canadian all over everybody's asses?
By the way, you were saying that you think only Charlie Day can do that, but that was actually a very good Charlie Kelly. Like, I'm not going to lie.
Like squeaky.
Yeah, that was really good. So I commend you for that one.
Thanks, buddy.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to kind of feel out like how Chaos keeps doing this. First of all, it very much lives up to their namesake, right? They are like
They're
the most
chaos.
They are the most chaotic team in the league, no question. You just never know what team you're going to get with them. Clearly, I saw this a lot on social media. They've got a lot of guys who play with a lot of emotion. They got a lot of guys who play with chips on their shoulder. And I saw, on social media after they beat Archers, they were like, yeah, like, oh, remember we only got picked to win like 18% of, no, like not even, they got picked to win like whatever it was, like 12, 11% of the brackets or something like that. And clearly they took that to heart. And that's just what this kind of team does. And it all starts with Andy Towers. And Andy Towers is a really interesting guy. He's a very smart guy. And he lets out this, he has this like very big, crazy demeanor. And I think a lot of people get distracted by that and don't realize that he's a really, really smart guy. And he really, really knows what he's doing. It's not surprising to me that he gets his guys going for the big games. And the other thing to remember about Chaos is that they have just such a talented team, and we don't always see it. And I think that especially when they have, the best goalie in the league with Blaze Reardon, I think what happens sometimes is, they'll let up some goals. They won't play up to their potential. But all they need is for Blaze to show up at the right time. And he always seems to show up at the right time. Their defense has stepped it up well. They've got fantastic scorers. I always say that, a lot of people like to talk about some of these other players in the league who, might be better scorers. But I think Josh Byrne is right up there with everyone else.
Agreed.
Like Josh Byrne's absolutely fantastic.
100%.
And I think he's one of the best scorers in the league. He scored the between the legs goal last year. It was one of the sickest lacrosse goals I've ever seen in my whole life. And the nuts to do that in a game is ridiculous. And again, it's the persona of the entire team that, they have these guys who have this ability. And at the end of the day, like, they have confidence that they're going to win games, like even when they're not winning games. And even though, they lost to, I believe they lost to Atlas by 6 goals last time. I think they still are coming into this game with a lot of confidence that they can win it. And I again, wouldn't be surprised. They did the exact same thing last year. Everybody was against them last year. And, they made it to the championship game and gave Whipsnakes a really, really good run for their money. Wouldn't be surprised to see it happen again.
No, and, again, we'll give our thoughts. Both of our best bets come in this game, but I'll, end this before I throw it Hutton's way and just say I would be shocked if either of these teams end up winning this game by the margin that the first matchup was, just from how much better Chaos has been playing, a little bit more of Atlas on film. They were kind of sneaking up on people. Don't take anything away from them. Don't get me wrong. They're terrific. And I completely echo those sentiments. Remember that the PLL top shelf game that came out, the mobile game where you're able to like flick and shoot. I worked my tail off just so that I could get a Josh Byrne MVP as my shooter. I love Byrne. I'm right there with you, brother. So Chaos being chaotic, is there something to that, Hutton? I mean, it seems like every year this is what they're able to do. They're able to get hot at the right time. They're able to keep those oars in the water. You've had interviews with some of the aforementioned people like Towers, like Byrne. So your thoughts as you look at this Chaos team and how they're able to constantly keep getting away with this, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll look at what the Chaos, I think, do really, really well, which is put them in this position, and then I'll kind of go with what the Atlas could maybe do to disrupt that. But it starts and ends with Blaze. They live by Blaze, they die by Blaze, and the thing is, they've been living by Blaze a lot. He has never made less than 10 saves in a game during his 3 years in the PLL. That just shows that this team, one, it shows that he can make those type of saves. I mean, I don't know what the update is now, but at one point through 24 games during the PLL, he had averaged 16 and a half saves. Like, that's unheard of. So they're going to live by Blaze. They're going to die by Blaze. That's why he's asked to make so many saves, because they press out. They try to disrupt this offense. They did that with the Archers, whereas they really disrupted the top scorers of this Archers team by just pressing out and saying, all right, beat us. Well, we have confidence in Blaze stopping you, even if you get a good solid shot on cage. So that's their game plan. I think they're going to take a similar approach, in this Atlas game. That's where I think, the Atlas might give them some trouble, though, because the Atlas can score in a variety of ways. Jeff Teat plays kind of all over the field. He's obviously on that lefty side, but he can play up top. He can play down low. He can be a facilitator. He can be a scorer. He's got a great two-man game, and the Atlas play a similar style to the Chaos in a way. They're a little bit more fluid, but, Chaos love doing those two-man games on the wings. Yep. Atlas like doing that too. I had a good conversation with Jake Watson and Joe Keegan a little bit, and the big question is, Jack Rowlett would probably be Chaos's top cover guy. Do you have him cover Teat? Because I think Jeff Teat would be perfectly content pulling out Jack Rowlett on the island and letting them play 5-on-5, and I think the Atlas would, have a field day with them if they do that. So I think that's where it's going to be a little bit difficult. The Chaos have, essentially 3 top cover guys. They don't really have a guy like Brody Merrill that they had 2 years ago, kind of, being that second slide guy, being that communicator. They kind of, again, they just press out. They force you to beat them, and if you do beat them, they got Blaze, backstopping them. So I do like the Atlas in this game. I don't know if I'm confident enough to take them plus 1.5. Definitely on the money line, if you're willing to lay that juice and if you like the Atlas. But, again, the Chaos, based on Blaze's performance, they definitely have a shot in this. And I agree with you guys. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what we saw earlier in the season.
See, that's why I love it when Hutton's with us, because that's info that Doug and I cannot give you. Only one of the best in the biz, Hutton Jackson.
You don't get it anywhere else either.
That's facts. It's facts. Bet on Lacrosse. It's the holy triumvirate. We're the Rush of podcasts. There's probably like 3 people who get that reference. So we'll move on to the Whip Snakes and Water Dogs game. As I said, Doug and I both have best bets coming from that one. The Whip Snakes, despite being the lower seed, 2 straight games that they are the favorites against the spread. Whips are 1.5 point favorites. The total is 24.5. And I think we can't talk about this game. We can't handicap this game, Doug, without kind of batting around the old, again, axiom, betting axiom, just sports axiom, rest versus rust. Both of these teams were guaranteed to have a week off, but Water Dogs have not seen field action in 2 straight weeks. They had their free bye week because they got that 1 seed. And this was a team, for what it's worth, early in the season, the only games that they had won prior to going on a little bit more of a roll was when they had continuity and they were having 2 games in back-to-back, the 2-game weekends. So, that is something that concerns me for a Water Dogs 1 seed. The rest versus rust aspect, does that worry you at all for your ticket that's sitting in your pocket on the Water Dogs to win the championship, Doug?
In a word, yes. I can't help but be very nervous about this game in terms of my future ticket on the Water Dogs, because we've seen this so many times before. We've seen Whip Snakes do their thing. They just do what they're going to do at all times, and they dominate. And I think what we're going to do either way is we're going to see what kind of team Water Dogs is, right?
Agreed.
Because they've had the 2 weeks off, I wouldn't be surprised if they go down early. They've had a lot of time off. I think that they're not necessarily ready for the game speed, and I would not be surprised if they go down going into halftime, that they're losing this game. It would not shock me in any way. If I had a half line anywhere, I'd probably be taking Whip Snakes first half, no question, because Whip Snakes will be much more ready to go out of the gates. You would think, at least. And we're just going to, and then that second half is going to be very, very interesting. We'll just have to see what happens with Water Dogs. And we can find out if they're a championship caliber team, because this is something that Whip Snakes have done in the past. They go down early and then they make a crazy comeback and win the game on the biggest stages. And it'll just be very interesting to see if Water Dogs can do that. I think they've definitely got that potential. One place where they really were great in their first game with Whips was at the faceoff stripe with with Jake Withers. And that's also to say too that Joe Nardella was not as dominant this year as he was in years past.
He's had flashes, but I would agree overall in the whole entire season, it hasn't been what we came to expect from the Nard dog.
Exactly. And, Water Dogs in that first game won 74% of the faceoffs. Jake Withers won 74% against of the faceoffs against Joe Nardella. I think, no, never mind. I think Joe Nardella actually conceded a couple faceoffs because he was just getting killed out there. He was getting roasted. And it's one thing that makes me feel fine about Water Dogs because, I clearly face-off is such a big deal in this league, and if they can keep that possession and keep the field tilted, they can go out to their really great wing play, and kind of go from there. And that's the only way they're going to be able to stay in this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Whip Snakes come out as the hotter team, and then we'll just see. We'll have to just see how it goes from there.
Yeah, and there have been, for what it's worth, on DraftKings, some live odd lines. So there's not a lot that I really love on the board this week to, because how I like to bet. I like to hit the openers. Like I like to have what I think is going to happen heading into the week, and then I like to hit those opening numbers. This was really the first week, maybe a little bit in quarterfinals week as well, that nothing really screamed out to me as a crazy value play, because I think the way that I would look in this game would be Water Dogs getting the 1.5, but I would much rather wait in game and kind of get a more advantageous price on that than laying the, minus 150 or minus 155 that you have to do right now. Because when I look at the Whips, yes, they're 6-4 overall. Yes, they are the only champion the league has ever known. But as mentioned when we were running through the ATS rankings, they're only 4-6 against the number. And here's the even more stark thing, guys, is as favorites, they're 1-6. So they're 1-6 as favorites. 3 of those games are outright losses. So it's not like you can just set it and forget it with the Whips, which you feel like you should be able to because of the talent that they have. So the only way that I would probably be looking spread wise in this game is the Water Dogs, but it doesn't make it for my best bet because I just can't lay that huge juicy price when I know there's live odds available. And if my handicap ends up being right, okay, maybe I play the Whips live or play the Water Dogs when there is live betting opportunities. If you don't have a strong feeling, don't just bet to get action in. Wait to see what happens. You don't have to bet pre-flop. Wait until you see the cards dealt and then react to that. And then if there's any value you can find live betting, that I think is going to be your better way to attack these games this weekend, because nothing really outside of what I have for my best bet, my EMO, which is, you'll see it's a little bit going around the ring because it was hard to find stuff that I love this week, but there are thoughts that I love going into this week, and there are handicapping things that I like heading into this week. But why, if I know they're going to have live odds, why would I bet it pre-flop? I'll see if what I thought was right, and then we'll see what ends up happening there. The other thing that I would probably look to in this game, or actually, Doug, do you have anything to say on just live betting before I give my last thoughts and throw it to Hutton before we step aside, get you our best bets, our EMOs? Live betting, what do you kind of think about the take about betting post-flop?
Well, all I can say right now is that you have severely piqued my interest because, we're going to be there. We're going to be at the field.
Oh, you're right. I didn't think about that.
That's what I'm saying is we're going to be there. And honestly, I kind of agree with you. I think you can get a really good number. Like I said, if this game goes the way that I think it's going to, you could maybe get a really good number on Water Dogs, and we'll just be there. We'll be at the field. And I might just, at one point, we might just have to turn to each other and just be like, all right, is now the time?
Yeah, this is the time. We won't even say anything. We'll just look at each other. We'll wink and we'll know that this is the time.
I don't know if Whip Stakes goes up by 4 or 5 early, maybe we're just okay, let's grab that Water Dogs lifeline, because, and that's the whole thing with live betting. And that's the one thing I'll say about it is you have to go in with a strategy, right? You can't just, and it's the same thing with any betting. You need to be doing everything for a reason. And you can't just be I feel like this is the right move. And it's especially true with live betting. With live betting, you really need to be like, I don't love water dogs plus 1.5 minus 155. That's a little too much juice for me. Especially if you can get a live line of like 2.5, 3.5, whatever. Like I would like that a lot better, but I can't get that until I see how this game goes. And if our hypothesis is correct and whip snakes come out hotter, then maybe that's our opportunity to take water dogs instead with a much more advantageous line. And conversely, maybe our hypothesis won't be correct. Maybe water dogs will come out as the hotter team, and that might be the time to take whip snakes especially when they become underdogs. Like the line might flip at the beginning of the game. And that might not be a bad opportunity to take whip snakes too. So yeah, like pre-flop, I don't know that I can really make a judgment call on this one. It's just too tight. It's just too close. But yeah, when I'm standing in Philadelphia, watching this game live, I would not be surprised if I end up with a live bet on my hands on either one of these teams.
I love it. And also to reward the Bet on Lacrosse listeners, if you're going to the game in Philadelphia, when there is the opportunity to hit the live bet on either of these teams, obviously follow us on Twitter at Newbie Talks, at Doug Greenberg, at Hutton Jackson, at the show, at Bet on Lacrosse. But if you're actually in the stadium, I'll do, that episode of SpongeBob when they were hanging out with the Flying Dutchman or the Flying Dutchman, whatever the hell the guy's name is. And they have their war cries, the lead from Patrick. I will audibly do that in the stadium. I'll probably get kicked out because I do have press credentials. They're going to be like, what the hell is this dude doing? If you hear that noise, you'll go to our social media because we'll be telling you about a live betting opportunity. If you hear that's when live betting is going to be happening. Because we want to reward the listeners that rode with us all season, Doug.
Yeah, we will be putting out a signal. I got to come up with a signal too. Maybe I'll do I have like a little bird call that I do. It's pretty loud.
Ooh, okay.
I'll bring out the magic conch.
Yeah, hit it. What's the magic conch is a good one. What's this? Ooh.
So we'll do a little bit of that. And if you hear that in the stadium, that'll be my call. Yeah, it's a loon call, right? Loons are in Maine, so I learned how to do this when I was in Maine for a little bit.
A loon call. We get loony, baby.
Yeah, we're getting loony with a live bet, right?
Wow.
So that'll be the signal, right? And we'll do the lead. If you hear some very weird noises in the stadium, that is your signal to live bet.
When you see Doug and I being escorted out, I should probably bet on one of these teams live. And it's probably the team that's the underdog. I digress. We've gone off the rails before the show ever even started. The other thing that I would look at, and then I'm going to throw it your way, Hutton, to wrap all this and give some sanity back to the program, Mr. Magic Conch.
Praise the Magic Conch!
The under for me in this game, as I kind of laid out, the under's going 23-16 this season. The other thing is that both of these teams, I think perception-wise, they're high-powered offenses. They got Sowers, who will probably be back on the field. You have some goaltending struggles for the Whip Snakes. However, I would be kind of surprised if they end up going back to Bernlor this week because, Phipps didn't do too bad in his stead. I think around 60% on the save percentage. The Water Dogs also, of the 4 teams that are left, they have the best scores against average. Only 10.9 scores per game allowed. And the Whips, I think, surely are going to have focus on defense both ways. Ward has been having a great season towards the end of the year and some of the struggles that he fought through. I think the goaltending is going to be live. I think the under, while it's not an official play for me, it may be something that I'm betting the under 24.5. And that's something that I was kind of looking at in this game. Hutton, you get the last word, brother, on Whip Snakes 1.5-point favorites as they take on the Water Dogs 24.5, final game of semifinal weekend.
Well, I've been tempted to live bet before, and I never actually have. And now I'm like really tempted because I'm thinking, okay, I'm hedging both with plus 1.5. Do I see if a team gets down by 3 or 4 goals, play that plus money, hope that team comes back and play the other side?
This is getting this is going too far.
I might need
this
to call
is
our guy
betception. It's betception. It's a bet inside of a bet inside of a bet. Just spin a top, Hutton, and then we'll see if we can wake you up or not.
Oh,
I feel like I need to drop a star.
I might have to stay away from you guys. You might be a bad influence, or you might be the best influence in the world on me. Who knows? We'll find out. But that my only thing is I think I go back to what you guys were saying. This is a really tough one to choose. That's why I am playing it both ways, essentially. And I just, tell people, like, again, DraftKings right now, a lot of the sports books out there are giving the Water Dogs the points. But, if you do like the Whip Snakes and you want to take them with the points, you have to lay a little bit more at minus 145. I think it might be minus 155 now. But, if you don't feel comfortable maybe taking them on the money line and you want to have that extra cushion, you can get them on Caesars, plus 1.5. So that's where, I would just always shop the lines a little bit and see what's out there, because you might be able to find some value based on what your gut's telling you.
Like, here's the thing. We were very proud of you for the middling, right? And now you're saying you might want to follow us on this live betting, and you're going to have like 3 bets on the spread on this game. And I'm thinking of like the meme from Star Wars, from the prequels, where it's like Padme being like, "You're going down a path I can't follow." Like, like it's too much. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry we did this.
You're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Or you're Padme and you're like, you're not going to bet anymore on this game, are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
Exactly.
You're done betting on this game, right?
Yeah.
No, I can't help it.
He can't help it, folks. He's submersed himself into the culture, and now you're stuck with this, man. You're a D-Gen for life. Alongside my co-host, with the co-most, Doug Greenberg, I'm Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks. Hutton Jackson rolling with us as well. We're going to step aside real quick. Best bet coming your way. EMO coming your way. That's some extra money opportunities all up in your face. Let's hear from our friends at Anchor. Now it's time for what you have all been waiting for. You stuck around on one of our lengthier episodes. Hey, when it's semifinals, when it's finals, sure, there's only 2 games to talk about, but a lot of betting theory that you got in this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and you'll be rewarded for sticking it around. Oh, yeah. Simply the best. And it's time for our best bet segment. All bat lead off here. My best bet this week is Chaos plus 1.5 against the Atlas. You know I love Atlas. Don't get me wrong. Honestly, I think they probably will win this game, but this is all about numbers for me, guys. Chaos has covered the 1.5 spread in 4 straight games. Atlas, sure, they're 4-2 as 1.5 point favorites, but both of those ATS losses came in their last 3 games. They've had a struggle down the stretch here once people have kind of figured out how their offense flows, covering that with regularity. Look, Towers and company aren't going to roll over for anyone. And like I said earlier, I would be shocked if you see another 16-10 lopsided win either way in this game. But it's bulletin board material for our guy Andy Towers. With how improved Chaos has looked, this is the only way that I can look. Give me the Chaos getting the 1.5 points against Atlas. That is my best bet. Doug, your game also looking at a best bet in this matchup. Where are you going, my man?
Yes, sir. I'm also looking at Chaos Atlas. I'm looking for my best bet. I am looking at the under 23.5. And you know what? The reason why is partially because I didn't want to bet on Chaos plus 1.5 also. Because clearly when we do that, it doesn't work. So
the double best bet is the auto fade material. So I appreciate that, brother.
Exactly. So I really loved Chaos plus 1.5 too. It's what I was looking at for this one. It's one of the fairest lines on the board, but I came up with this one on the total on this under 23.5 because of that bet, right? Because of Chaos plus 1.5 minus 125, because I think if Chaos are going to win this game or stay competitive in this game, it's going to be a low scoring game, right? Like they're going to win this game by grinding it out. Like if it's a shootout, if it's, a sprint or, whatever you want to call it, it's a boat race or whatever, Atlas are going to win this game, right? Because Atlas just have more firepower. They have more ways to score. They're able to do that a little bit better than Chaos does. I think if Chaos is going to win this game, they're going to keep it defensive. And their defense has looked really, really good the last couple of weeks. Obviously Blaze is back there, but Jack Rowlett has looked really good. He was the defensive player of the week in the quarterfinals. I do love chaos in this game. And I think that there's a very good chance that they take it under. So I will, and to be fair, like the first time that these two teams met, it was not, it went much further over this total, but I believe the total was a lot higher in that game. I think it was 26.5, and it just barely got over, right? It was a, bad beat, or it was a backdoor cover, however you want to call it. I don't see it going that way this time. It's the playoffs. They're going to tighten this play up. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Atlas tighten it up too. So give me that chaos Atlas under 23.5 for my best bet.
There it is. Best bets. We're both looking to game one. So we may be super pissed off by the time game two rolls around. No, we're just kidding. It's all in good fun, folks. Never bet with money you can't afford to lose. Because winning money is fun, but having the stories about losing money, pretty damn fun too. EMO extra money opportunity time, and I'm throwing right back the way of the co-host with the co-most, Dougie Fresh. How we getting some extra money in the listeners' pockets this week? What are you looking at for your EMO?
All right. So for my EMO, I'm actually going to do a parlay. Water Dogs plus 1.5, minus 155, and under 23.5, Chaos and Atlas. You might recognize that from 2 minutes ago when I said that was my best bet. This is actually something that I do on the rundown sometimes, and varying degrees of success. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I will often parlay a pick that I really, really like with something else that I also like coming up later. And I think this is actually a really good opportunity to do that. I feel pretty confident in that under 23.5. Like I said, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. And I truly believe that no matter what happens, I think the Water Dogs Whipsnakes game, I think it is going to be it's either going to be a 1-goal game or Water Dogs are going to win it by a pretty solid margin. So I feel pretty confident being able to take that. And frankly, when I plugged that in to the old like parlay function on Sportsbook, I was expecting to get back like a number, I don't know, like 180 plus 190. Was not expecting to break 200. Ooh. And I got plus 214 spit out of this. So if you combine that Water Dogs plus 1.5, minus 155 with the under 23.5 in Chaos Atlas, minus 110, that spits out plus 214, which is really, really great value. You can throw a half unit on this if you really want to. You don't even have to throw the full unit on there. So that's what I'm looking at. I like Water Dogs plus 1.5, minus 155 parlay with the under 23.5 in Chaos Atlas, minus 110, spits out plus 214. That is my EMO. What do you have, Mr. Daniel?
Oh, I love that, man. And mine's a little bit outside the box as well, because my EMO for this week is the Whipsnakes to win the title at plus 175. Sure, you could have got him at plus 700. You could have got him at all these other prices. And no, this isn't a fade on the Water Dogs. Don't get me wrong, folks. I'm all aboard the Doggos. I want them to win this game. This is all, both of my plays this week is about value. And if the Whips beat the Doggos, they'll likely be favorites against the Atlas or Chaos. So essentially what I'm looking to do here is make a 2-game parlay out of the Whipsnakes here. So you're going to get the Whips at better odds that you're going to possibly be able to get them. And you can't possibly parlay 2 of these games together unless you did a mechanical parlay. That's all this other stuff to get into. It'll hurt your brain. So if they do win, you can just hit the other team next week, whether it be Atlas or Chaos on the money line or against the spread, depending on what the better payout price is going to be. Lock in your profit and enjoy championship weekend sweat-free. My EMO, Whips to win the title, plus 175, a pure value play for me. And that is going to do it for the show, for the semifinal edition of Bet On Lacrosse. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, I'm Dan Alexander at Newbie Talks on Twitter. Alongside me, as always, Doug Greenberg. Get him on Twitter. Check out the rundown each and every weekday at Doug Greenberg, Hutton Jackson, producing the show, hopping in, giving great thoughts. Check out their episode of Pro Lacrosse Talk. He and Adam Moore have quite the guest. Have a feeling this one's going to be a fun one to listen to. Make sure you check that out as well, which does it for us. Again, folks, we're going to be in Philly for the semifinals. If you see us there, if you see my locks, you see Doug's chiseled chin, you got to stop out and you got to say hello to us. We would love to chat with you. We'll have some cool t-shirts that we'll be rocking, so you'll be able to find us pretty darn easily. But that does it for us. All these bets are guaranteed to hit. And if they don't, there's only one reason they don't. I've been saving this drop for last.
You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia. Bad things.
That's the only way that the bets don't win, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Get at us on Twitter at Bet On Lacrosse. Check out what we do at Lac's Playground as well. And we will be back for finals weekend. Bad things not going to happen in Philadelphia this weekend. We'll talk to you next week, folks. Have a good week.